Alright guys, today we're going to talk about the new Muse album, Simulation Theory. Muse are one of the most successful UK bands going at the moment. They are currently on a streak of 5 #1 albums. Since their debut album in 1999, Muse have been reinventing their style. Early in their career, Muse got a lot of criticism for being a wannabe Radiohead act. But taking their cue from Radiohead, Muse have experimented with their style during their 8 studio album career. Black Holes and Revelations, released in 2006, was a very successful album from Muse, and they could have continued in this style, but instead they followed this up with 3 experimental concept albums. And these concept albums dealt with darker themes like government oppression and war. War was especially criticised on the last Muse album, Drones. I thought Drones was a good album. I liked the alternative metal direction that they took on here, and Drones had some nice progressive moments on tracks like The Globalist. Reaper was another good song on Drones. I thought Drones was a good album. It had some really strong guitar riffs. It was uncompromisingly guitar-orientated rock. But Muse have moved away from this more rock-orientated sound. Simulation Theory takes a lot of inspiration from the 1980s, and stylistically it's a lot lighter and brighter than previous Muse records. And the band have taken a lot of inspiration from electronic music. There are synths everywhere on Simulation Theory, but it still retains the classic Muse sounds that the band have worked on throughout their career. Muse established this electronic rock sound early. On the opening track Algorithm, it's backed by a mid-tempo percussion, and as the instrumental builds up, the electronic sounds are very apparent here. After about a minute or so, the vocals come in. I like the way that the synths gradually lead into the vocals. Algorithm is a nice way to start this album. It's a great song. Something Human is a bit like Arctic Monkeys' Tranquility Base Hotel and Casino, which came out earlier this year. This recent Arctic Monkeys album was quite controversial with some fans, as the Arctic Monkeys moved away from their guitar-orientated sound and went in a more lounge pop, acoustic direction. Not everyone was a fan of the latest Arctic Monkeys album, but I feel like Simulation Theory will be a lot less divisive among Muse fans. Muse have been known to always experiment with their style, so I think the fans are more receptive to experimentation from the band. Simulation Theory also sees Muse work with an interesting collection of producers. The band worked on this album track by track, and certain songs have got different producers, which is quite apparent when you listen to the tracks. You can tell who's produced which song. Simulation Theory sees Muse work with Rich Costey, who was a producer on the last Muse album, Drones. These are the more guitar rock orientated tracks that Costey produces. Muse also worked with Mike Elizondo. Elizondo is a long-time collaborator with Dr. Dre, and the two have worked together on tracks like In the Club and Real Slim Shady. There are also tracks with Shellback. Shellback often works with Max Martin. Shellback is notable for working with Taylor Swift. He produced some of her biggest songs like We Are Never Ever Getting Back Together and 22. He also produced DJ Got Us Falling in Love by Usher. Shellback produces the more poppy songs on Simulation Theory, including Get Up and Fight, which features vocals from Tove Lo. Tove Lo's vocals sound like they've been sampled from a 90s pop song, and they play in and out of the track. You can tell that Shellback produced this one because there's a big chorus here. It's very poppy. Get Up and Fight is about humanity coming together and working together to a common goal. There's a nice big chorus here. I really like the vocals on this track. Mike Elizondo produced Blockades. Blockades feels like classic Muse here. There's big stadium rock influences on this track, with an overbearing guitar riff that really works nicely with the vocals. But there's also some electronic bleeps that are just going in and out of Blockades. And I feel like Blockades is in the classic Muse style, but also has these electronic influences that we're hearing on Simulation Theory. Blockades is a nice song, and I think it would work well as a single. The final producer we haven't talked about on Simulation Theory is the legendary Timbaland. Timbaland is well known for his rap productions. He's worked with some huge names like Missy Elliott and Jay-Z. Timbaland has also produced for Justin Timberlake and has given big hits to Nelly Furtado as well. Timbaland produces the track Propaganda, and it just feels like a Timbaland production here as well. The guitar does a nice job of adding tension to this production here. There's a slight disco twinge to this track as well, I feel. Propaganda feels a bit like synthy R&B here. It's quite mid-tempo. It's got the classic Timbaland like snaps to add to the percussion. And it feels like it's taken a real EDM influence to Muse's sound. And Propaganda is an enjoyable track. It's a bit of fun. I don't know if Muse are taking this whole sexy R&B angle too seriously, but it's enjoyable nevertheless. I like the track Break It To Me. I like the big guitars on this. This is something that Muse always have done well throughout their careers. There's always like an epic feel to the music. And tracks like Break It To Me just have larger than life guitars. This is produced by Coasty. It has those elements of drones with the big stadium rock inspired guitar leads. And the percussion is quite atypical for this style of music, and there are twinges of electronic production throughout this composition. So it feels like the Muse style, but with this elements of electronic. And the headline of this album really is the synths and the more electronic elements. But Simulation Theory does retain the Muse style, and a lot of tracks that have these electronic elements still feel like Muse. And for the most part, it works really well. Simulation Theory, despite having the different producers and the different styles on separate tracks, this all does fuse quite nicely together. It gives the album a cohesive feel. It's a nice amount of experimentation from the band, who could just take it easy at this point, but credit to Muse to keep trying to experiment. Simulation Theory closes with The Void. This is the most electronic track on this album. It's all synthesizers and sparse percussion. The message of The Void is that humans can change and work together and make for a better world. Overall, Simulation Theory by Muse is a good album. I enjoyed this. I enjoyed hearing the experimentation with more electronic elements. And for me, I enjoyed it, so I'm going to give it 7 out of 10.